civil service? Any good memory? Anything good happened that you could share with the public?
Yeah, lovely. I remember one time at the Mombasa SK show, Kibaki was the chief guest. I was the PR manager for NSSF. And then I got word that some character was moving into the office of managing trustee in Nairobi. So I quickly went to the Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, whispered it to him. We both went to the Kibaki. I told him what was happening. And he called Mudavara and told him to stop this nonsense. So,
in those exact terms?
Yes. So Madam Rachel Ombasio, who was then the managing trustee, was able to sustain and keep her office. Because imagine you're on duty in Mombasa, people are taking over your office in Nairobi. Just say, stop this nonsense. And the matter was brought to an end. And then the second incident was in 2009 at the Nairobi show. NSF was about, I think, number 4 in terms of stands, because stands compete. So Kibaki would only go to stand number 1. So KPA were the leading, they got the number 1 slot. So somebody, one of the board members asked me, why don't you use your connections, because you claim to be influential, to bring Kibaki to our stand. To our stand. So I said, well, let me try. So I called Zach Kaberia. Said, why don't you ask him there to pass by and look at the portfolio, the billions that you have made. He says, what are you talking about? So like 200 billion that just lying around, money he can use for his infrastructure development. So a few minutes later, the security were around, and they said, close that door, reinforce ABCD, and the minister appears. Then during when it's being introduced to the staff, he tells my boss, kijana namjua sana. Anafanya kazi nzuri.
That must have bought you a lot of airtime.
Yeah, but within the civil service, it buys you more enemies.
It buys you more enemies.
Yes.
So it wasn't very good in the end.
No, the end.
Just wait. What are some of your moments in the civil service?
Okay, some of my moments are while covering Parliament from the national broadcaster. During the budget the days, we could go there, set up and everything. And I remember this one time when he was the opposition leader. And actually I have to say that in my memories and looking at how government has worked, I can credit the late president as a very strong opposition leader. He really kept what opposition was. So we were preparing for interviews after the budget had been released. So we went around with a colleague, and she said, we need to set up members who will speak immediately after the budget has been released. And we went to the small dining at Parliament. And he was seated at that small dining in a corner with some members. So my colleague moved forward, Rachel, and said, excuse me, they were having lunch. He said, then there's a way the late president used to turn. He wasn't a speedy person, but he had that kind of,
slow motion.
Slow motion. He took his time in the way he did his stuff. So he turned around and said, yes, what can I do for you, young lady? Then my colleague said, we want to interview you immediately after the budget so that we can get your comment. And he said, where are you from? Then my colleague said, we are from KBC. Then he said, KBC. So when I heard that, I started retreating. I was scared. I'm like, he's going to say, I don't want to hear anything about KBC or something. Then he said, instead of me, when I retreated, my colleague moved forward. Yes, sir. Okay, I will come. And he did come. Actually, was the first person that we had interviewed and gave his comments about the budget. And of course, another thing I remember him for, I was privileged when the refurbished chamber was opened in 2012, the National Assembly chamber. And then I was covering, because KBC does the coverage for Parliament as a media house. So he came to open the PBU TV studios. And actually, I remember when he went around, opened the chamber, then he came down to the studios. And he was a towering figure, and he stood behind my back because I was the director, and I told him what to do on the mixing bench. And I could feel you know, I was shaking. I don't even know how I opened my mouth and said, Your Excellency, now press this and you will be on air. So I was like, wow. I will really miss him and
Right.
the interaction I had with him.